to Jeremiah. And we're going in the 34th chapter. And in this chapter, it kind of talks about the kings and once again, I guess covenants that were made, or as we might say today, arrangements that were made. And we're going to see, once again, the Most High, he always keeps his part of the bargain, but sometimes we fall short. Sometimes the correction is slight, and then sometimes the correction can be devastating. But whether it's slight or whether it's devastating, he still loves us. (34) This word came to Jeremiah from Yahweh when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, his whole army, all his vassal kingdoms, and all the people fought against Jerusalem and all its cities. Yah, the God of Israel, says to go and speak to Zedekiah, king of Judah. And Jeremiah was instructed this. He says, tell him that Yah says, I'm going to hand this city over to the king of Babel, which is Nebuchadnezzar, and he will burn it to the ground. He will burn it to the ground. You will not escape, but will surely be captured and handed over to him. Your eyes will see the eyes of the king of Babel. He will speak with you face to face, and you will go to Babel. Nevertheless, Zedekiah, king of Judah, hear the word of Yahweh. Remember now, he just got some bad news. It's almost like he's saying, you know, Barry, when you go home, somebody else gonna have the keys to your house and everything there is in it. And he's just gonna take over. And I'm saying, you know, I would be thinking, well, golly, I thought I was in right standing with you. Can you imagine what that king thought to hear that another king was going to be running roughshod over everything? And there's nothing he can do about it because the Most High said this is what's going to happen. He says he will speak with you face to face, and you will go to Babel. Nevertheless, Zedekiah, king of Judah, hear the words of Yah. Yah says this about you. He says, you will not be put to sword, but will die peacefully. And just as they burned spices for your ancestors, the earlier kings who preceded you, so they will burn spices for you and mourn you. O Master, for I have spoken the word. says Yah. Jeremiah the prophet said all these words to Zedekiah, king of Judah, in Jerusalem, at the time when the king of Babel's armies was fighting against Jerusalem and against all the cities of Judah that were left. I guess we could translate that almost today like, you know, what's happening now, a lot of mass layoffs and mass firings, and a lot of things are happening in the economy. You know, I know they gave the unemployment figures and things of that nature, and you know, and I kept saying, you know, when we hear stuff like that on the news, I would always encourage us to remember, regardless of what you hear, you've got to answer the question, how is your economy? How is your economy? Also in this, we see that even sometimes in service to the Most High, sometimes instructions or he may have an indication, or he gives you an indication that something unpleasant may happen, but nevertheless, you're not going to die from it, but it's going to be unpleasant. You know, I said earlier, sometimes correction is severe, sometimes it's slight, and a lot of that appears, because I'm not speaking as an apologist for the Most High. I'm not speaking as one that I've been in conference with him. I pray we mature as children of the King and stop presenting things in such a way that only the Most High will dictate what he will dictate. I said something last week about people saying, you know, I know God and things of this nature, and I keep taking you back to those 3 friends of Job. We need to be careful, because none of us can sit in his seat. We are the created. We are not the creator. And the danger in society that's happened, see, by us going our own way, we have said to him, in spite of the fact that he's creator, he created it all, he has an order, he has instruction, and with the order in creation, he had a purpose for everything. It appears, again, I'm not talking as one that I wasn't there when he charted it out. And too many that do research and whatever else they do to help their book sales and their subscriptions convey things in such a way as they're on par with the Creator. I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. But even looking at society today, everyone is now, instead of speaking his truth, what? We're speaking our truth. I might decide I don't want to be what he created me to be. Where is all of this coming from? He said, what? I'm God, I'm Yahweh, I change not. Books have been written, songs have been written, circumventing, changing around it to make it fit whatever people can imagine. And then other blind people are willingly following other blind people. We've got movements in this country, movements that are directly opposed to his order. So when we're living like that, that's why sometimes when correction comes, it appears harsh. But let's read on a little further. This word came to Jeremiah from Yah after King Zedekiah had made a covenant with all the people in Jerusalem to emancipate them. In other words, free them. Everyone who had a male or female slave who was Hebrew was to let him go free. None was to keep as his slave a fellow, and here they have Jew. And let me say this, and I'm not throwing shade or anything like that. Remember, different translations read differently. In fact, some of us may have flinched when I said the word slave. But again, remember, a slave earlier was not the same as the type of slavery that occurred in this nation. But I'm making a distinction because, and I mean, I speak English, but the English language at times is insufficient, if I can say that, when it comes to the essence of what the Most High was conveying. And a lot of us, I mean, that's what we know, that's what we speak. And well, I read it, and that's good enough for me. You might want to get you a Greek, Hebrew study Bible and some other studying reference books, because it'll change the way you see it, the way you understand a lot of the scriptures, and it will help you get the essence of what it is that the Creator was conveying to us. Because once man got involved, he began to, because I think most of you are aware, when they first started translating, the scribes were doing it under duress. They did not want to do it. And so those that were getting them to translate it, they would translate it, and then, of course, they would read it, and they would say, well, I don't want it to say that. Say it this way. And that's where the danger began to come in. Everyone who had a male or female slave who was Hebrew was to let him go free. None was to keep as his slave a fellow Jew. All the leaders, listen to this, all the leaders and all the people listened, who had entered into the covenant, wherein everyone was to free his male and female slaves and not keep them in bondage any longer. This was a covenant. This was an arrangement. Now, here in America, we would say they had a contract. See, and contracts bring in lawyers. Lawyers bring in the court system, which brings in judges. That's another lesson. So they formed, a covenant was formed. He says, hey, okay, we're gonna let the slaves go. Or another word, instead of slaves, they were indentured servants. That's a little nicer. But let me read a little further. It says here, they listened and they let them go. But here's where most of us come into play. It says, but afterwards, in other words, okay, Father, how many of us got in trouble and we say, Father, if you get me out of this, you know, I won't do that no more. I'm gonna straighten up, you know, and we do for a little while. But then we kind of go back. See, when I said that, and he delivered me, and sometimes I still might have gotten punished, but it wasn't as severe. And so what happens? Over time, I go, well, yeah, man, I mean, you know, y'all, when I was, I don't know, I had, well, at least 16 or 17, Arthur and I, we were going to work. And I forget, somebody else was in the car too, a couple of my neighbors, we were all going to work. And it was around, you know, Christmas time. I know we was coming from up Azalea Mall. And I was navigating my way out, and I clipped the car. I hit a vehicle, just slightly. And I kept on going. Went to work. Came home. My parents had new carpet put in the family room. So I had a hard time getting that door open. And I pushed the door open, and sitting there in a recliner was a Henrico policeman. You remember that, Art? Now, of course, they didn't take me to jail. But, you know, it was a fender bender. But, you know, I kept going, and one of the guys said, I don't think they saw you. And I'm thinking, I got to get to work. Now, I broke the law. But I wanted to get to work. And so I had to go to court. And I was scared. My mom went with me. I mean, and that courthouse looked so big. And, you know, at first I was like, oh, it probably ain't gonna be nothing, but closer my court date came, and then I had to go down there, and it looked like I walked down a long aisle, and that judge was sitting behind the desk, and they had me come up. And he asked me some questions, and he said, well, why'd you leave, son? And y'all remember I told y'all I was a Eddie Haskell. So I'm going to try to play the sympathy card. I was afraid. That's what I told the judge. And I think, yeah, they let my mother come up with me because I was nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was scared. And the judge, you know, he looked at me, and I think they probably even had, you know, I was a fairly decent student or whatever, but he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, in fact, I thought it had worked because he looked like he was going to have compassion, you know. And he said, well, I tell you what, to help you remember, I think they suspended my license for 6 months. I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive. And I mean, of course, you know, I knew I wasn't going to go to jail, but then I was like, well, golly, if they suspend my license, you know, and I had to turn it in, I think. I had to turn it in. And I was like, well, you know, how am I going to get to work? You know, and that was a long 6 months. But then I got, you know, and I was like, well, and for a while when I was able to drive, I drove right. But then after a while, now I knew you going to remember this. Doc and I used to race. Remember Dad had that Opel GT? Doc had a 65 Mustang. I'm going to try to race him home, driving an Opel 4 on the floor, stick shift. Man, he was playing with me. I would get to the light and wait till it turned yellow, getting ready to turn red, and run through the light. Now, I done had my license suspended. Did I learn nothing? You see what I'm saying? See, after a while, I changed my mind. That's the same thing that these people did. Listen. All the leaders and all the people listened who had entered into the covenant wherein everyone was to free his male and female slaves and not keep them in bondage any longer. They listened and they let them go. They did what they said. They did what they said. When I got my license back, yes, sir, I'm going to drive right. I'm going to do this. You know, and then after what? Now, in the beginning, when I got it back, yes, for a while, I did what was right. I drove like I had some sense. But after a while, oh, that wasn't so bad. I guess that's the way I was thinking. That I'm going to be racing my buddy home. And I remember one time I said, Arthur, come on. And Arthur had went to Doc, because Doc told me, Doc said, your brother said, don't race him. He could barely drive. And I mean, man, I used to rev that thing up, John, and try to go on through and Doc was coming right on behind me. And then he could drive that thing. And then he'd be standing somewhere, and here I'm coming around. You know, because those cars, them Opel, they weren't fast. You know, and if they were, I couldn't drive them fast, you know. But look, I changed my mind. It cost me 6 months. And you know, when you 16, 17, 18 years old, and you got your driver's license, that's, you know, you tough. And you know, I didn't, now the guys that was going to work, they knew what had happened, but I ain't tell hardly none of my classmates. You know, I was just trying to act like I still had my license. But see, here the thing is, I did what was right for a while. But then what happened? Like these people. But afterwards, they changed their minds. They made the male and female slaves, whom they freed, return. And they brought them back into subjection as slaves. I went back to my terrible ways. Tried to tell the judge I was afraid, and I was afraid. Trying to play, sympathy. See, that was an Eddie Haskell move. And it didn't work. And so these people, they changed their mind, brought them back and made them subject as slaves. And then it says, therefore, this word of Yah came to Jeremiah from Yah. Here is what the God of Israel says. He says, when I brought your ancestors out of the land of Egypt where they lived as slaves, I made this covenant with them. At the end of 7 years, every one of you is to set free his brother Hebrew, who has been sold to you and who has served you 6 years. So, we used to talk about the year Jubilee. But see, again, listen, we should keep our word. This is what I'm talking about. Why we have to walk in our integrity, and the integrity is the instructions of the Most High, which each one of us that are trying to live our lives by Torah, we got to do that. So when you give your word, you got to keep your word, saints. We don't get to change our mind. And go back on our word. As flaky as people are today, we gotta toe the line. We have to. Saints, if we start living like everybody else living, ball game over. The ball game is over. Like Nellie was saying, Cousin Nellie. It was wonderful to see the place packed out. And I thought of Mom and Dad, and I said, this is what we about. See, but saints, it's really not about the numbers. See, the Most High keeps you equipped to handle whatever situation comes in. This building ain't here just for nothing. These people didn't come from out of Glen Allen for Petersburg for nothing. Keep your word, saints. Now, don't give it out. Don't give your word willy-nilly. I've told you before, listen, don't agree to do something when you're real happy or when you're real sad. Please try to stay on an even keel. Because see, the society we live in, people are looking, you're what they're looking for. A dishonest person is looking for somebody that's honest. Two crooks don't want to go into business with each other. Why? They know they're going to cheat each other. They listened and they let them go. But afterwards, they changed their minds. They made them male and female slaves, whom they had freed. Return, come on back. and they brought them back into subjection as slaves. Then Yah, seeing that, he says, when I brought your ancestors out of the land of Egypt where they had lived as slaves, I made this covenant with them. At the end of 7 years, every one of you is to set free his brother Hebrew. Now, isn't that interesting? When we read earlier, what did they say? As a fellow Jew. And I know I'm being, and this fellow's an Ashkenazi. Now, I'm not being racial or anything like that. Yeah, I'm okay. So I just, but for me, this is a better translation for me. So you probably have your own, you know. That's interesting. And who knows? Maybe somebody talked to him and he meant to take that out, but he left. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna move on. He said, yeah, you ought to let him go free. And he said, at the end of 7 years, you sold. And sir, at 6 years, he said, you are to let him go free from you. But your ancestors did not listen to me or pay any attention. Now you repented. You did what is right from my viewpoint when each of you proclaimed freedom to his fellow, and you made a covenant before me in the house bearing my name. So, but he's saying, Barry, look, boy, I was there when you said, if you get me out of this, you know, I'm gonna live right. I'm gonna do right. Even all of us, well, not some of y'all probably didn't. I can think of a couple of y'all probably. I don't know if y'all ever got a spanking. I don't know, but I ain't gonna call no names, because I know some of y'all got tore up, and you should have. But how many times did our parents tell us, don't do this, and we did it anyway, and before they could even get the switch or the strap up, I ain't gonna do it no more. We've been there. Now, I tell you, all of us got it, but ain't nobody sound like they was getting murdered more than Danny. Man, I will feel for him. But after I peeked it out, I was like, probably he wasn't getting no worse than what we was getting. But boy, could he holler. But I love him. But the Most High is saying, listen, I was there. I saw you do the right thing. And then I'm going to read further now, because this is what the Most High is saying. He said, but you and your ancestors did not listen to me or pay any attention. Now you repented. You did what is right from my viewpoint when each of you proclaimed freedom to his fellow, and you made a covenant before me in the house bearing my name. But then you change your minds. You profane my name when each of you took back his male and female slaves. This is what I'm saying, folks. This is why when we give our word, when we say we're going to do something, we got to do it because it's as if you're telling him you're going to do it. See, we'll think, oh, it's just Barry, even though he probably want to wring my neck, he going to say it's okay. And I probably will say it's okay, but on the inside, I'm saying I do want to wring your neck. But we do that to each other. Oh, it's okay. No, it really wasn't okay. 3 o'clock in the morning, and you told me you was coming to get me, and you ain't come till 6. And then we go, oh, brother, okay. No, you see, we shouldn't do one another like that. Hey, come on. And, I know other saints do it, but we shouldn't do it. I've told you before, and I know it'll bother some people. There is a distinct difference between somebody living Torah and somebody living the stuff that's being proclaimed over the airwaves. I'm telling you, it's a difference. We got to keep our word, man. Even if it's to our detriment. How many of you have been in a situation money's tight? I know we all been in a situation with money tight, and don't answer, just listen. Money's tight. And again, you either entered an agreement or you said you would do something or you said you would do your end or whatever. Did you take care of your situation or did you keep your word? Just think about it. I'm not asking anybody to answer. Just think about what you did in that instance. Did you keep your word or did you make sure your situation was straight and they just gonna have, or did you say to yourself, they just gonna have to understand? What if that person really was counting on you to come through? I remember, no, I better not tell that. It was on myself. Folks, our word means something. See, because as long as we're doing what's right, he's backing our word 100%. Particularly, now again, sometimes people want to get you in a situation that is too hard for you, too high for you. And we need to have the presence of mind to say, hey, bro, I can't do that, but I can do this. See, all the time in this society, it's too many people faking success. And we're doing it with smoke and mirrors. Listen, this country is deficit spending. Most households in this country are deficit spending. That's why inflation is such a bugaboo. Inflation is a tax. Inflation is why you can have a few $100,000 in the bank and get $5 interest. That's what I'm telling you. There's a war of words going on right now between the White House and the Federal Reserve, and I'm not getting into that, but I am going to say this about the deficit spending. Whenever you hear a leader say that, because we all know that the dollar is the world's currency. And you'll hear the leader, whoever he is, and it doesn't matter, either party, when they're in office, they always say it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. Do you know who they're talking about? They're talking about us. They're talking about everybody that works a 9 to 5, that owns a business, that generates income, that gets taxes paid. And my favorite president used to say that all the time until one day I said, wait a minute. Because see, our currency used to be backed by what? Gold. But a president undid that. And once he undid that, the everyday working person is what's backing. And the bond market, when they sell bonds and treasuries, I wish we weren't streaming, but that's all right. I'm not going to say anything. I love America. But folks, we're living off money we really don't have. And when we deficit spend, we're saying we're good for it. When the United States deficit spends, and they still want the other countries to buy our goods and buy our, invest in America because they're saying we're good for it. What the leaders are saying is, my everyday working people are good for it. But what they don't tell you on the back end, they're looking at doing something with our Social Security. And when we deficit spend, because most of us will say, because I don't know why, but we think a 6-figure income is a whole lot of money. And you all know, if you have a 6-figure income, not knocking that, and that it's better than nothing. But I'm here to tell you, most people that have a 6-figure gross income are 2 to 3 times that income in debt. It's designed that way. Nowadays, in this country, did you know you can get the groceries now and pay it on a pay plan? They're going to get more creative, and it's all going to come under financing. Look out. Look out. I'm going to get back to this. But again, see, even when you're negotiating like that, you're making a covenant. You're saying, I'm good for it. And see, the banks and the institutions that are setting up these programs, they're saying, not only are you going to be good for what you got, but we're going to tack on some interest. That's why we're offering this service to you. And see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tie in giving your word to the finances, because that's an area we all could improve in. So if you start looking at, oh, wait a minute, hold it now, he in my pocket, he in my wallet, he in my purse. I'm saying, yeah, exactly. I'm saying, what you're saying is, hey, I'm good for it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this. And I'll pay the extra. And that's what they want you to do. I didn't know this. I found this out, that credit card companies, when you use the credit card and you pay it off, whatever balance you have, you pay it off, they consider you a deadbeat. They really don't like you because you pay your debt off. You don't give them a chance to make any interest. See, but they were deceptive in forming the covenant with you, because most of us, you would think, well, they ought to see me as a good customer. Because I charge it, but at the end of the month, whatever it is, I write a check and I send it off. No, you're considered a deadbeat. They have a script depending on how much they making off of you, because they love for you. Just send in the minimum payment. Get them red bottom shoes. Get them today. Go to the place. Turn the place out. Girl, you was, Take that long trip. Stay a week, stay 2 weeks. Same thing with education. I told you all, a friend of mine got all that education on the job. To move up, had to do this. They did that, and then you know what they did to her? Let her go. Did you hear what I said? Let her go. Lost the salary. Still got that student loan, though. All right? And see, a lot of people are thinking, because they got this, that, and a third, the ice is melting under everybody's feet. So you might want to spend accordingly. I hadn't planned to get in all of that, but that's still a form of making a covenant. That's still a form of saying, I'm good for it. I'm gonna take care of this. And so some people, I'm going to get back on this. Some people say, well, I'm going to take care of it. And you know how they going to take care of it? They'll say, hey. And a lot of them were doing this, and they changed the rules on this. A lot of people just filed bankruptcy. I know personally of some people got 2 children from China, adopted 2 children, bought a big palatial estate, 2 really nice cars, filed bankruptcy. Got to start all over. Kept everything. Still got the 2 kids, still got the big palatial estate, still, well, they may have traded up the vehicles. But they were saying when they did all of this, we good for it. And I mean, I know them personally. See, people, it's all kind of, folks, we gotta, in all our dealings, we gotta be straight. Now I know sometimes stuff happens and you get in a situation, but don't tell him that you're gonna do this and do that. And like I said, when you tell another person, it's the same as you telling him, because you're saying you're a child of his. That's why we got to keep our word. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm, mm. But then you change your minds. You profaned my name when each of you took back his male and female slaves, whom you set free to live as they wished, and brought them back into subjection as your slaves. Therefore, you did not heed me and proclaim freedom, each to his brother and each to his neighbor. So now I proclaim for you of freedom, says Yah. For sword, plague, and famine. Translation, Barry, you went back on your word. I was there when you made that agreement, and then you changed your mind. You embarrassed me. I hope you'll spare the sword. But he said, okay, I'm going to grab you in the collar. How dare you say you're a son of the Most High and you carry yourself in that manner? Yeah, he'll have mercy, but correction's coming. Correction's coming, and the correction's coming because he loved me. And we got to understand. I mean, sometimes, you know, we done messed up and you know it's coming, you just used to just grit your teeth and just bear it as best you could. And then sometimes if you didn't cry, and they think, oh, you don't cry, huh? And then they turn up the heat. Then when you start crying, then what they say, hush that noise up, hush that noise up. And on the inside, because you had a brain, you say, well, if you stop hitting me, I'll stop crying. And it's the same way with him. You know, we do stuff, and then when the correction comes, oh, Father, why me? Why this one? This is too hard for me. That's what we do. Or we do little dirty things to other people, and then when they come back on us, crying crocodile tears. You weren't crying when you did that dirt to them. You know, so the gist of this, ain't but 7 minutes left. The gist of what I was getting out of this, listen, when you give your word, stand by it. Because the Most High is looking and he's listening. Now, because sometimes things out of your control happen. And sometimes you might have to go back to the person, but don't wait till the last minute, particularly you know they're counting on you to come through. You know the person be like, man, and I hate to keep talking about it, but it might be a money situation. And I've told you before, well, we all know that what the Bible said, don't be surety for no man. Yeah. But somebody said, Greg, can you let me hold $50? I'll give it back to you Tuesday. Now, this is what I notice most married men say. Let me check with my wife. I know then he don't really want to lend it to me. And I just go, hey man, that's all right. In my head, I'm calling him all kind of names. But I'm telling you, sometimes other saints will put you in a situation, and you're like, oh my God, you know, they're desperate, they're this and that. And so then you endanger your situation. You can't help anybody given from your foundation. Your foundation has to stay sure. Because if worse come to worse, at least you can say, listen, you can stay here for a period of time. Not forever. Because some folk get in and they won't never leave. And I think it was Bernita told me, for God's sake, don't have them get no mail at your place. I think that's what you told me. But, you know, the main theme today, folks, is, yes, Be men and women of integrity. Give your word, but don't willy-nilly give it. Don't give it because you didn't want to hurt their feelings. Hurt their feelings, tell them the truth. Don't be ugly about it. If you don't got it, you don't got it. If you can't be there, you can't be there. But let me tell you something about that can't be there. Don't let that always be your response. Because ain't nobody that busy. And your situation is no different than a whole lot of other folks' situations. I don't know why we always think, yeah, but I got to handle this. Bruh, you ain't the first that this done happened to, and you won't be the last. Sis, you're not the first person that went through whatever it is. You won't be the last. I'm not mad at anybody. I just get exercised. And you know, and I'm talking to us. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to us. This is a we thing. This is a we thing. We need to realize, man, your word means something to folks. In fact, some people, if they say, if somebody say, if I go to so-and-so and so-and-so, and they tell me, because the best thing to do sometimes, saints, if you're really not sure, just tell them, listen, I'll see what I can do. And see, when you've developed a reputation as a man or woman of your word, that will suffice for some people. Rather than telling them, well, I didn't want to hurt their feelings, and so you lied to them. So if you're in a pinch, just tell them, listen, okay, listen, this is what I'll see what I can do. You've done that with your kids. And back in the time when we was celebrating Christmas, you tell them, they say, well, you know, I want this or I want that. And you used to tell them, yeah, if you act right, you might get it. Then, you know, not long after they see that, at first when you tell them that, they acting right for the next 15 minutes. But somebody come to you and you're not sure you can do it. You tell them, I'll see what I can do. And then what you do is you call another person of integrity. See, we like to try to, we think like I said, we got that super C on our chest, super Christian. You know, you try to handle everything by yourself. Sometimes that elephant too big, you can't take the whole thing. So get some help from another person of integrity. That's what we're here for. Like, you don't have to fight the whole battle by yourself. The biggest, you know, and I'm going to close. I know, I see it red. Listen, all of us in here, in the course of our life, the Most High has blessed you with several genuine people that have come in your life. Now, whether we recognize them or not, that's on us. But I firmly believe that all of us have had genuine people come in our lives. Now, whether we recognized it or not. In closing, please, if you don't remember nothing else, be a man and a woman of integrity. Be cautious. But when you can, because there's a scripture that says when it's within your power to do good, he just said do it. That's what he needed to sue Nike, because Nike came out with that just do it. But they got it from the Most High, because he said if a situation occurs and it's within the power of your hand to do it, he said do it. He didn't say Do you like them? What you think about them? You know, oh, I don't like that dress they got. I ain't helping them. Oh, he got an ugly car. I ain't going to help him. No, he didn't say that. I'm going to shut up. God bless you.